It's say the truth. It's a good opportunity for me as well to listen to your story, Matt, because I'm hearing bits and pieces here and there, and so it's a pleasure to have you. And remember, when you started college here, and we decided to we were in APAC together, and you know, and where you were inspired to to do this act, and we all thought you were crazy, uh, and sure some people you know what should I say, didn't realize how this is going to happen, how you're doing that. So that it really sounds like a wild, crazy idea, but Maimonides says that people have to be people to make a difference in the world. They got to be crazy. So you need some crazy people in the world. So I would call it a real courageous act. Definitely, anybody who goes to Israel these days, it's preparation for the coming of Mashiach. Where all Jews will go to Israel, especially someone who goes to Israel to defend the land and to be there as a lone soldier and to sacrifice that much. Someone who's willing to sacrifice that much for the Jewish people, for the people of Israel, for the nation of Israel, is definitely a big, big mitzvah and a big schutz, a big merit. So thank you for everything that you have done and you're doing, and we all, take credit for that. I would say, we take credit for that. So your parents take credit for that. So your family takes credit for that. I take credit for that. You've been here, and we inspire each other. And I'm sure as part of the inspiration you got here, I'm sure help you make this decision. So, I'll take the right to also take some credit for it. Go ahead, Matthew.
Thanks, Rabbi.
I'm going to mute myself.
All right. Everybody else, I suggest. All right. Give me a thumbs up, Rabbi. Okay, sounds good. Hi, everybody. Friends.
1 second. Let me just make sure. Let me make sure she Maya starts the Facebook Live.
Okay.
So 1 second. I'll just get the okay from her that she's doing the Facebook Live, and we're gonna get started. On. Okay, it's on. You're good to go.
All right. Sounds good. Perfect. Okay. So, hi, everybody, friends, family, people I may not know. Before I begin, this presentation is in honor of Michael Levin, Zichron Bracha. Today was his 14th Yortzeit, and he made the ultimate sacrifice 14 years ago in the Second Lebanon War. And I'll talk a little bit more about him later. He's involved in my story. So before that, I want to just talk about where I came from, and before I talk about why I'm talking to you. So my name is Matthew Feuer. I was the first American born to an Argentinian immigrant family in Good Sam's Hospital in West Palm Beach, Florida, 24 years ago. I grew up in like a, typical Jewish family. My mom's a doctor, my dad's a cantor in a conservative shul. And, since kindergarten, I went to secular private school and magnet schools. And I didn't really keep kosher or Shabbat for most of my life, but I went to Sunday school up until my bar mitzvah, learning how to read Hebrew and Jewish culture and history. I'd sing with my father on the bima on Shabbatot and on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We'd have a Pesach Seder with our group of Argentinian Jewish families in town. And to this day, I'm constantly reminded by seemingly every single elderly Jewish person in South Florida that they were at my bris, as if I'm going to remember them. But from the sound of it, it sounds like there were more people there than at the Super Bowl, or well, certainly this year. So as mentioned before, I wasn't very religious growing up, and I just assumed that, missing some days of school, like during the high holidays and Pesach, and not believing in Santa Claus were really all that what made me different than other people. And by the way, if you're wondering, I was the kid that ruined Christmas for everybody in kindergarten. But unfortunately, those two facts weren't enough, and I was reminded quite a bit by a few of my non-Jewish peers and even adults of whom I had in the least comfortable ways. So I'd say my first real reminder of me being different, I wouldn't call it anti-Semitism, but me being different was in the summer of 2006. I had a good friend and a neighbor of mine who was half Cuban and half Lebanese, who went to visit his grandparents in Beirut the summer of 2006. And if you guys remember, that was the wrong place to be at the wrong time. Due to the commotion, he and his family had to be evacuated via UN helicopters. And throughout the conflict, my eyes were peeled onto the TV screen, waiting for his return and hoping for his safety and that he wouldn't be caught in the crossfire. But and I was really looking forward to him coming back and being safe. So when he finally did come, like the day that I found out he came, I came the day after, and I was like, "Hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Like, is your family okay?" and everything. And I was thinking that maybe he would be happy to see me, like, that I was concerned for him and everything, but he was angry. He was very resentful. And it wasn't at the Hezbollah terrorists that actually started that war, but it was against the IDF that were, defending themselves from constant rocket fire, and by proxy with me. That he was saying, how could you support Israel? How could your family, as Jews, care for this? They ruined my summer and like my time with my grandparents. And what did I have anything to do with this? I was Jewish. That was it. And he just associated that I would be, like on their side or like one of their soldiers, even though I'm just some 10-year-old that literally had nothing to do with the conflict. Another time was during the time leading up to my bar mitzvah. So I went to a secular private school, and we only had about 30 plus kids in my grade. And it wouldn't be much of a party if I didn't invite everybody, because then it would just have been all of my mom and dad's friends and a few family friends that are my age. So, I was waiting for everybody to RSVP. And since it's a small play, like a small class, I was, if I saw somebody didn't RSVP, I noticed it. And there was one kid in particular that he didn't RSVP until like the last moment. So I went up to him and I was like, listen, dude, I want you to, I don't know if you're coming or not. Like, I thought we were friends. Like, we're on good terms. I come to your house every so often. We, play video games and stuff. But what gives? Like, why aren't you responding? Just tell me if you're not coming. It makes it easier for my parents. And he responded, listen, I'll give you an RSVP. I'm not coming to your Jew party. And that was a shock to come from somebody that I thought I had like an actual good friendship with him. And, that was definitely an eye opener. Just seeing that, that type of senseless hatred can come from anybody. And then another one from an adult. Actually, it was later that same year. I had a teacher that I was in her class, and we came a little bit early before the late bell, and I was just chatting with other people. I didn't realize that the what's it called? The bell rang, and she wanted to get class started. So it was Pesach time, and I was the only Jew in the class. So she had the bright idea of saying, "Hey, Matt, stick a matzah in it." And it was just an awkward silence. And and after a while, I started to fake laugh. And I said, you know who would love that? The principal. I'm going to go tell him that joke right now. So I marched directly to the office, and I was able to, she kept trying to stop me, but I actually went and I told them what happened. She was fired at the end of the year. Now, I'm not saying that like I really went through any sort of like true hardship and that I was oppressed growing up in any sort of way. There were, Jews in different parts of the world and different times of history that went through so much worse than I did. My dad, for an example, when he was a teenager, he was in a I wouldn't call it a gang, but he was in a group of boys, Jewish boys, that would help protect other Jewish teenagers from children of like of ex-Nazis that lived in Argentina at that time. So, that's definitely a much bigger deal than what I had to go through. But I had my reminders that of my place. Um, by the time I was in high school, I'd already gone through a lot of different phases of trying to find my place in the world. I went from like a preppy kid to a nerd to a metalhead to straight edge to artsy to like a generic bro that really liked to party. And that was basically all I had going to me. I wasn't really satisfied with whatever I was looking for. Like, I wasn't happy with where I was. Like every time I was looking at something else to do, and I don't know. So before the end of my junior year, even I didn't even know what I wanted to do with my life. When people would ask me, I'd say my response would be, "I want one day to be important enough that your kids and your grandkids are going to need to memorize my name and what I did for a grade on a test." But other than that, I had no idea. I didn't have any real aspirations other than just, you know, fill my place in the rat race, graduate high school, go to a college, maybe join a frat, and then slave away until I can retire, and that's it. But no, real ideals, no real aspirations. But during high school, actually, I did have the opportunity to start reconnecting with Judaism on a deeper level, starting in my sophomore year through a program called the Maimonides Leadership Institute at Palm Beach Synagogue. So the basic concept of it was that a rich donor couple, they donated like a huge amount of money and to this synagogue and basically said, "I don't know what guys want to do with this, but this has to go through post bar mitzvah education, because after your bar mitzvah, this like anybody that grew up in South Florida wasn't Orthodox, that basically all Jewish education goes goodbye. So no Sunday school. After your bar mitzvah, you don't really need to do anything." So basically, Rabbi Shiner from the shul, he decided it would put money towards like a Sunday school program, get good speakers, get a great program going, but the majority of the money would go towards something similar to the Sinai Scholars. If anybody that's in FSU, that basically if you go to every single class and you participated in every class, you never came tardy, you never missed a class, and if you like if you were a good student, then you could get a check at the end of the year for up to $1,000. And that's a very big incentive. So a lot of Jews will sacrifice their Sunday morning for that for a few months. And the truth is, including myself, most people didn't actually get that full $1,000 for whatever reasons. But people that didn't stop people from coming if they knew they weren't going to get that full amount. Because at the end of the day, people would come for the money, but they would stay for the Torah. So this opened a completely new perspective on what Judaism was. It became a lot more sophisticated in what I was learning. So I would learn we were learning Pirkei Avot and like different like ethical like perspectives of Judaism in certain situations. We learned about the holidays and ceremonies that I found out I knew a lot less than I actually thought I did. Israel education and all the great rabbis and speakers like Mordechai Kedar, Izzy Azagui, a lot of great speakers came by. So this was like what opened the door for tshuva for me, but I wouldn't actually step through that door until I went on the March of the Living. So if anybody is not familiar with what this trip is, basically every year, except this year, of course, there's a group of thousands of Jews from all over the world, mostly teenagers in high school, and also like staff members, obviously, and Holocaust survivors that accompany the groups. That they go to Poland during the week of Yom HaShoah, and then they go to Israel during the week of Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day and Independence Day. So, and it all culminates on a giant march with all the delegations on Yom HaShoah in that's between what's it called? That you walk from Auschwitz to Birkenau, and then on Yom Ha'atzmaut, on Israeli Independence Day, you walk from the municipality building in Jerusalem to the Kotel, to the Western Wall. So if anybody has ever done it, they know it's an incredible experience. And if any of you haven't done it, whether as a student or as an adult, I highly recommend it. There's many different groups. Talk to me after if you want to find out more details, and I can get you in touch. So I have 3 remarkable moments that happened on this trip. So the first one, during that march in Poland, one of the things that we were encouraged to do by our group leaders was to bring things to be able to trade with other students from different delegations, so we can create some sort of like connection and awareness with the rest of the diaspora community of the world. So they could be like pins, hats, or just any sort of souvenir that's unique to where we're coming from. Like I remember there was people from South Africa, they were giving up vuvuzelas. There was people from Argentina, they were giving out Argentinian flags and jerseys, stuff like that. And everybody during this, or most people during this march, they're carrying Israeli flags and they're wrapping it around their neck like a cape, like the Jewish Superman type of thing. And so there came a kid from Morocco that he was holding up a $20 bill, US dollar bill, crumpled up in his hands. And he comes to me, and he doesn't have a flag on his back. He says, "Excuse me, can I buy that Israeli flag off of you?" And I didn't understand, because everybody else had one. I don't know why he didn't have one, and I don't know why he was gonna give me $20 for it. It just didn't make sense. I thought he was like trying to mess with me or something. I said, why don't you have one? And he's like, well, I'm from Morocco, and Jews are able to live in Morocco and like relative peace and everything, but it's not the whole Israel thing is not such the great situation here. There's no way for me to get a flag in my country, and my delegation's not actually going to Israel because of that. So I want to get a flag, so at least like in my house I can like display my love for Israel and the Jewish people. So I was very touched by this, and I knew there was an adult that he had extra flags that he was selling. So I was going around looking for any person I know to try to point me in the direction of this guy so that I could give him a flag. And we're going around everywhere till I found my friend Noah. And I told the story to Noah, and I was like, "Do you know where this guy is?" And my friend Noah, without hesitation, just took the flag off of his neck and gave it to this guy. The guy was in tears of happiness. I just made him go on a wild goose chase when this guy was just willing to give it for free, like without even a question. And I felt, great that I helped him, but in a certain way I felt bad that I couldn't be so altruistic. And from that moment, I knew that my goal in life is to help the Jewish people in whatever way possible and not to leave someone hanging like I left this guy. At the end of the Poland trip, the last day we were in my Danik, and if any of you have ever been there or know about it, it's a horrible, horrible place. It's one of the most complete concentration camps that are still like, they say that they could flip a switch and it could be fully operational in 24 hours, God forbid. And there's horrible things. I don't want to talk about it so much, but that was the last thing we saw in Poland before going to the airport to fly to Israel. And when we got to the airport, because there's thousands of Jews in one place at one time in Eastern Europe, getting ready to get on a plane, obviously security was very crazy, and the lines were very long to get on our charter flights. So a delegation from South Africa, they actually wanted to, pass the time in like a nice way for the people that are like more in the back of the line. And so they started to do like a Havanagila Hora dance, and they were dancing around, singing and everything. And one kid from South Africa, he did not leave his bag by him. He left it unattended on the other side of the lobby. So after about 20, 30 minutes, we had to get evacuated into the outside. So everyone's freaking out because they just came from a scary concentration camp, and they weren't even in the Middle East yet, and there was already a presumed terrorist attack that they thought was happening. We ended up finding out that it wasn't, and the kid actually went to his group leaders to tell them that his bag was still inside, and that's probably the cause. But by the time we actually got him to the doors, we just heard a boom. It was too late. They already blew up his bag. And so with that, everybody universally said, all right, we need to get the heck out of Poland. We need to go to Israel and just, enjoy. So we got to Israel in the morning. It was a beautiful spring day. It's like, weather kind of like Florida in the same type of year. And after breakfast, the first place we went to was, what's the name of the park? It was the Spiegel Park in Tel Aviv, which it's on a cliff overlooking Hilton Beach and the Tel Aviv Promenade. It's a beautiful view of the ocean park. It's like a park with trees and everything. We're all standing there, and our group leader says, all right, everybody, you had a very tough week and very busy, but like more than anything, it was tough to see the things that you had to see. But at this moment, you're home, and I want you guys to relax before we get back into busy programming. And welcome home. Enjoy yourselves. Find a spot in the grass, lie down, and just close your eyes and enjoy for a few minutes. And when he said that, I just immediately plopped down right where I was. And almost immediately, like 2 seconds later, he says, wait, before I tell you guys to do that, I'm sorry. Israel being like any other country with public parks, sometimes people are crazy and they don't pick up after their dogs. So check where you're actually laying down. So he was standing right behind me, and I sit up, and he sees my back, and he just says, oh, Matt. And I don't think I need to tell you what was all over my back, but it didn't matter. Even if I had poop all over my nice pink J. Crew polo, it didn't matter. There was no place I'd rather be in the world at that moment. The smile that I had, the happiness I had in that moment could not be matched in any other moment, at any other time, in any other place than there. So it was then I knew, like even before I even got to know the country, even before I met any of my family members or made friends there, anything, literally anything, I knew I want to live here one day. I got to live here one day. And the last story, we were in Shabbat in Jerusalem. And after Havdalah, but before we did our Motzei Shabbat activities, which was going to, on our little shopping spree in the Ben Yehuda street, we had a speaker come, and it was none other than Harriet Levin, who was Michael Levin's mother. And she came with a documentary and a slideshow, and she told her son's story. So the long short of it is, he grew up very similarly to me, except in Philadelphia. He was an active member in his local youth group. And when he was old enough, he also went on an Israel trip, kind of like what I did. And he fell in love with the country so much that while he was on the trip, he called his parents and he's like, listen, guys, I'm staying. I'm sorry. Like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. I want to be a soldier. That's it. And he was determined to come and join the IDF and be a paratrooper. And there was a lot of crazy stories that we heard about how many obstacles he had to go through to even draft to the army and to complete training, because he didn't have the best Hebrew in the world. He was also not the tallest guy, like a lot of Jews are. But what really mattered was that he had the heart of a lion, and he got through everything with almost no help and no support whatsoever in the country itself. He was something called what is called a lone soldier, which means somebody that doesn't have parents, either living with his parents or that his parents are out of the country. So And his dream after he would finish the army was with his friends to create a center for lone soldiers that they can, so other people wouldn't have to go through the hardships that he had to go through. And, he and other volunteers would be able to, make sure that, the service can be easier. So the most remarkable story about him that I thought was most inspiring was he went to the States to visit his family. Every lone soldier has the opportunity for up to a month every year to go visit wherever they come from and be with family. And he was in Philadelphia that same summer of 2006, and there was trouble in Lebanon. And his commanders were not getting in touch with him. He was trying to call them. They weren't answering him. So he said, screw it, I have to go. I'm a soldier in the IDF. There's no way, if there's a war happening, that I'm not going in. And he bought a ticket, said bye to his family. They were, obviously very sad and scared and worried. And he told them, I don't know if I'm coming back or not. And he came back to Israel. He got to the Lebanon border. He got back with his group right before they were about to go in. And unfortunately, he was correct about that assumption of not being able to come back and see his family again, because he was killed in action during a firefight with some Hezbollah guerrillas in southern Lebanon. But even though his life was short, it was very impactful. And his dream would be realized posthumously. His friends, his family, people that were inspired by his story came together. They built this Lone Soldier Center. And there's another, which is named in his honor. And there's another one called The Base, which is a newer organization that's also, following the same mission statement. And if it weren't for him, a lot of soldiers wouldn't have this door open to them and be able to do this great service like he was able to do. So at the end of the presentation, Harriet, his mother, she said, I forgot. I was supposed to ask you guys in the beginning, but raise your hand if any of you were thinking about becoming lone soldiers. And when she said that, I raised my hand just because of that presentation. And in that moment, I knew that I wanted to be a combat soldier and, just like Michael was, and, be active part in preserving the future of the Jewish people. And so those were the three big moments that March of the Living. So when it came time to come back to the States, I knew it wasn't a goodbye, but see you later to Israel. So when I got onto the plane, I made a pledge to myself that the next time I come to Israel, that I would not come back. There wouldn't be a return flight, and I wouldn't leave until I was drafted into the IDF. And aside from becoming a very passionate Zionist from that trip, I also became a lot more connected and interested in my Judaism. Because even though I had this in front of me all of my life, I took it for granted. And after this trip, after all these incredible moments that I had with religious Jews, non-religious Jews, American Jews, French Jews, Israeli Jews, my family that I never met in my entire life, I was like, there's a lot more about this religion than meets the eyes. I actually had come onto the trip wearing a kippah just as a sign of respect, but I came back from the trip wearing the kippah. And my parents came to pick me up from the airport in West Palm Beach, and they both saw that I had the kippah, and they both had very different reactions. My father, he was surprised, but he was kind of happy because he was like, he's clergy in a conservative synagogue, and he was like, you know what? This is great. He's embracing Judaism, and I can work with this. This is great. I'm very happy that we have this thing in common now. And it was a great, it helped a lot with that. Not that we had any problems in our relationship, but like it made our relationship even more deep and meaningful from it, even though in the end I wouldn't go in his direction and I would go become Orthodox. But at the end of the day, we share this, and we're both very grateful for that, I think. My mother, on the other hand, was a little worried when she saw me because she saw the kippah as like a target on my head, and she thought that, okay, this guy got Jerusalem syndrome. Like, there's no way that this is something that he wants to keep for the rest of his life. I got to make sure that he doesn't like go crazy. And like, he was afraid that I was going to become some sort of like fundamentalist, or like it'll ruin my relationship with her. So in the beginning, I tried, compromising with her a lot, trying to make it as comfortable for her as possible. But in the end, I realized, and I think this is what really, helped our relationship towards the, until this day, was when I actually started to become serious, when I started putting lines in the sand of that I won't cross religiously. And once she saw that I was serious about it, she took me seriously. And if anybody out there is making tshuva or are balei tshuva and, dealing with family, I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give. So I'm going to skip a year in my life, which to where the rabbi comes in, and why I'm speaking to you guys and how I'm associated with FSU. I graduated high school, and I went on a Euro trip with my best friend, and I didn't actually fly back home from the trip. I took a stopover in Miami to switch bags with my mom at the airport between my connection flights, and kissed her goodbye. And then I flew directly to Tallahassee, where my dad was already waiting for me with a bunch of my stuff to move into Wildwood Halls at FSU the next day. So, and that was the beginning of Summer C. So if anybody's, familiar with Summer C at FSU, there's a few, you take a few classes, but for the most part, there's a lot of free time. Let's just put it that way, for fun, nighttime activities, let's say. So that was a plus, and I enjoyed that while I was there. But what I really took advantage of was the fact that this was my first time in my life that I was living alone without my parents. So I was able to like explore my Judaism in, a very free manner that didn't, without any external forces except for my own, my own personal desires. And on the second day that I was there, I went to Chabad to see what was going on. I'd never been to a Chabad before. And it just so happened I came in right before Mincha services. And that was my first time I learned about Chabad, the first time I met the Orechman family, and the first time I met Jake Bloomstein and Benjamin Feit. So Rabbi, from the moment I walked in and until the moment I left in Pesach Chol HaMoed later that year, accepted me and guided me through every moment. And, with him, I had a lot of one-on-one time, which I never really had with a rabbi before, to really learn about the Halacha, Tanakh, Tanya, Chassidut, and many other things. And like I said, in a manner that I never had before, and almost on a daily basis. And not from a pulpit, but sitting across from me at a table, having lunch and talking. And so, he also welcomed me as like a member of his family. I would eat meals with his family. He would arrange me a place to stay so that I could properly keep Shabbat. And so that I wouldn't have to walk between campus and use the key cards and everything, and help me, have kosher food on a normal basis. And even one time brought me to Brooklyn on a free trip to go to the Kinas HaShluchim, the Chabad rabbi conference that happens every year. Unforgettable experience, by the way. If anybody goes to that, that's the biggest party you'll ever go to in Crown Heights. And by the second weekend in FSU, I decided to become Shomach Shabbat, with a few exceptions here and there. But for the most part, I was Shomach Shabbat. And I was determined not to break that and make a commitment to, strengthen my kashrut. It's very difficult in FSU, in Tallahassee in general, to, keep kosher, but, they make it the recommends make it a lot easier. Jake, on the other hand, my friend Jake, he graduated from FSU before I even came there, and he was a brother at AE Pi, and he was actually staying the summer to work at Chabad to waste some time, get some money before he was going to Spain to teach English. And he was also, grew up in South Florida, not religious family, but then became a lot more religious through Chabad. And when he saw me, he saw like a younger version of himself. So he took me under his wing, and every single day he would wake up, pick me up at 7 a.m. to come to shul. We would wrap tefillin and daven in the office together, helping each other with the davening and everything, reading it slowly together. And he became a bigger brother, not just with like Jewish stuff. Also, he would give me advice about life and about girls and like all these different things. He was I don't think I ever became such close friends with somebody in such a short amount of time, and then have him basically disappear from my life right after because he had to go to Spain. But it was I was like his Robin to his Batman in many ways, and yeah. So he made a very big impact on me in my development as a frum Jew. My friend Binyamin, he was also with me in the summer, but he stayed for the fall and spring semesters, and he went to a yeshiva high school he grew up from. But whatever. So we connected because we were two of the only religious people at FSU. The year before, he was basically the only one, and he was my Shabbat roommate. Every Shabbat we would be together. Even though he was like a senior and I was a freshman, we saw each other as equals. We were like the best of friends, and I just have a lot of great memories of staying up late, reading the leftovers from the Friday night kiddush in the kitchen, playing Cards Against Humanity, and at the tables and everything, just talking about everything, whether it be Jewish topics or things that may or may not have been Bittul Torah. But we had a lot of misadventures together. But the main point with him was that he helped me stay on the right path, made sure I wouldn't, stray away. And then also at the same time that I wouldn't go too extreme in certain ways, so that I wouldn't fry out like what happens, unfortunately, with a lot of people that become religious too quickly. So outside of Chabad, I got involved with Nos for Israel. I see Micha here, great friend of mine from a long portion of my life. His dad actually was the rabbi at my dad's shul when I was born. But so Nos for Israel, Nolpak, Hillel, and at one point I was actually an officer in every single pro-Israel and Jewish organization on campus, except for J Street, but they don't count. So I really wanted to become super involved with all of these things, because towards the end of high school, I just kept hearing things about how the college campus is the next battleground, for Israel, because this is where, there's a lot of anti-Israel incitement starting, and like there's apartheid week and like harassment of Jews, like as they're walking down the halls and stuff like that. So I came into college itching for a fight. I knew in like summer C there wouldn't be, but I was waiting for that in the summer semester. But much to, my pleasant surprise and also my dismay, FSU doesn't have that problem, at least when I was there. I don't know right now with everything that happened in the news a few months ago, but a friend of mine put it very simply. If there's no alcohol, if there's no loose people from the opposite gender, and if there isn't football, nobody's interested. So if you don't have one or all of those things, nobody cares, which in the end is a great thing for the Jewish community there, because they didn't have to worry about apartheid week. They didn't have to worry about the fake eviction notes being tossed under under their door, to, like, make their safety feel threatened. So that was like a difficult but good thing. But I have, as great as FSU was, I loved the football. I loved the fact that I wasn't bothered, and I loved the Jewish community, of course. But one thing that was an issue for me was, well, I'll just tell one story. So during my spring semester, I rushed a frat, and I'm not going to mention the name of the frat because I don't know who's listening, and I don't want you guys to have bad opinions about these people. But it was one of the larger fraternities on campus. A lot of Jews are in it, and I thought life was great because if you're in a frat, you're the king of the school, and I thought that it was my time to rise to the throne, and I became a pledge. And I was very involved with my pledge class. I was super dedicated. I kept trying to get them organized, make sure everyone came in on time and pitched in as much as possible and participate. But one day, I was called in for a meeting with some of the older brothers, and I walk into a room, and I just hear on the loudspeakers Hava Nagila playing, and these guys screaming at me, telling me, "Oh, it sucks that you're so religious. Like, I know you come on Fridays and Saturdays, but like you miss a few hours because you go to synagogue and whatever. You'd be so much cooler. You'd have so much more potential if you actually weren't so strict and everything, dude. Like, you gotta stop, blah blah blah." And then like, you just gotta choose. It's either Judaism or the frat. And at that moment, I didn't know what to respond. I was just like, I'm a little bit in shock. Let me talk to you guys in a bit. In the end, though, I said Judaism, obviously, because if you guys don't respect me and my beliefs, then I don't respect you guys. And they ended up trying to go back and say, "Oh, wait, no, you're really sure you want to go? Like, we'll respect you now and everything, and we'll make sure that if you don't want to join this semester, then next semester, we'll just get an automatic bid, and you'll be able to join us in the frat, without any problems." And I said, "We'll see about that. We'll see." So, yeah, and I had made a lot of compromises with them to make sure that religiosity, but just like I learned with my mom, if you're not serious about this, no one's ever going to take you seriously. So, yeah. At the end, towards the end of the year, I was I was a little bit lost spiritually, emotionally, and I didn't really know what to do. But then my friend Jordan, who's here, another great friend of mine, he was also part of the Shabbat crew. He was the student leader for Birthright on campus, and he recruited me to come on Birthright. And when I told the rabbi that I was going to Israel on Birthright, he told me about this great new program that Mayanot Yeshiva in Jerusalem was starting that year. That it was like a half yeshiva, half internship program. And I was like, "Wow, that's awesome! I'm going to be 3 months in Israel right now. That's great." And with that, I had an idea in my head. I was like, "All right, I'm going to go to Israel on this program, and then just every summer and every winter break, I'm just going to come to Israel for whatever reason, for whatever free trip I can get on, like a ZOA, Hasbara, whatever. And that way, that'll keep me motivated and in that mindset. And then if I want to make Aliyah or maybe join the army after I get my degree, that'll be good." So I took the opportunity. And when I got on the plane in Miami and doors closed, I remembered the pledge that I made so long ago, and in a plane also on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And I said, "Wait a second. If I don't do this now, I'll never do this. There's no way I'm ever going to do this if I don't do it now. I have to take advantage of this moment right here." So it was in that moment I decided I'm not coming back on that return flight. at the end of the summer. I was supposed to be the president of Chabad next year, the year after. Sorry, Rabbi. I hope you were able to deal with that. uh, yeah, so I went on birthright. I fell in love with Israel all over again, and it was very beautiful. I saw a lot of things I already saw before, like the Kotel and Tel Aviv, but then I saw many other things that I didn't see before, and it just made me even more hungry to see more of Israel and experience more of Israel and the culture and the people and the places. And I had about a month between the end of birthright and before I started yeshiva. So with that, I got to meet family that I knew lived there, that I didn't know lived there, including my dad's cousins, my mom's cousins, my brother-in-law's cousin, who just so happened to be the mayor of Rishon LeZion, which is one of the bigger cities in Israel, and I got to watch a basketball game ringside with him, which was pretty cool. And I remember I went to Har Meron for Lag BaOmer, which was a crazy experience in itself. And finally, I settled in yeshiva. And I came to yeshiva wearing a tank top in one of the most religious neighborhoods in Jerusalem. And I was wearing a kippah and whatever, but I was like, okay, I don't fit in here, do I? And then I walked in to the gate, and a guy sees me with a smile on his face, as if he's known me all my life, gives me a hug, and he's like, "Are you one of the new students?" After the hug. And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "All right, I'll show you your room, introduce you to everybody." And that's how I got initiated to the Mayanot Brotherhood. And I never felt like a stranger there. A lot of the guys were just like me, college age or post college even, that are balei tshuva. Maybe they weren't one of the only religious people in their schools, and this was their opportunity to explore Judaism. We got to explore it together. And then along with that, there were guys that were my age that grew up in the Chabad Hasidic community in Brooklyn and various other places. And, they were in to help guide us and become friends with us. And, it was just a lot of beautiful moments with those guys. I learned so much. I learned Gemara, I learned Hasidut, Halacha, everything. It was everything that I already learned, just like more intensified. And it was great. It was a great 3 months. And I ended up not going to my internship because I just wanted to learn more. And so as far as, like I said before, that I didn't, I came to this conclusion that I'm going to stay in Israel. I didn't tell my parents immediately. My father, I actually told him on the night of the Sarona Mall terrorist attack in summer 2016 that he called me asking me where I was and if I was safe. I assured him, I'm in Jerusalem right now. It's all good. You don't have to worry. I'm fine. And he's like, all right. So just, when are you coming back? Exactly when is your program end? Do I need to book a ticket for you? And I told him the date that the program was ending. But then I told them, but you don't need to get a ticket for me to come back. Maybe you want to come here, but I'm not going anywhere. And he says to me, I thought so. And so he was like, I didn't, this isn't exactly the path that I wanted you to go on necessarily, but I'm proud of you. And I hope you, stick to your word. And he always said to me my entire life, I'm the architect of my life. And I'm the one that can will make the right decision. Just have to follow through with it. And he believed in me, and he gave me the priestly prayer after that phone call. And it was very emotional. My mother, on the other hand, like before, not so easy. My father and Maya could probably let you know, there's nothing more terrifying than a Jewish Hispanic mother. And I knew that phone call was not going to go very well. So I waited specifically for the day of the Game 7 of the NBA Finals so that I would have a rebound after the call, because I knew it was not going to go well. And I could not expect it to go as bad as it actually did, because it turned out I called her at the worst time. She was driving with both of my sisters in the car and my nephew. And she called me, or I called her, and she was like, "Oh, Matt, listen, we're gonna go to uh, one of your sisters and I. We're gonna go. We think to Scotland this summer. So if you wanna, maybe you can fly to England, and then from there we meet up, and then we come back to the States with us." And I said, "Well, it's not gonna work because I'm gonna stay in Israel and join the army." Then I found out where she was. Then I found out she was with everybody else, and she was furious, to say the least. She said that she couldn't believe I betrayed her trust, that she would hide this from me. Like, she wished I could have actually at least spoken with her about this before, so then we could have, talked about it. And if she wasn't successful in convincing me otherwise, that she could get the chance to say goodbye. Bad move on my part. And then she was like, she couldn't talk to me anymore. So the phone became a hot potato in the car, passing to my sisters. They were both like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe we're doing this." Like, they didn't know what to say. And then the phone somehow ended in the hands of my nephew, Ethan, that he was like, "Hi, Uncle Matthew." And I said, "Hi, Ethan." And he was like, "What's up?" And I said, "Oh, you know how your dad was in the Israeli army?" He's like, "Uh-huh." And I said, "Well, I'm doing that too." He's like, "Oh, cool. Have fun." And then he hung up, and then he didn't hung up. My mom took the phone and she says, "I'm never talking to you ever again." And then she hung up. So I was distraught. I couldn't believe that like it could go this badly. And I was afraid that I really was gonna lose my mom in this. And for 2 days I was super depressed and moody and sad. And finally one day, 2 days later, my mother calls me in the middle of a Gemara class, and I run out without even asking permission, and I answer the call. I answer, and it started with very awkward small talk. "Hi, how you doing? Is everything good?" And then she says, "When can I come visit you?" And a few months later, she actually came to Israel for the first time in over 30 years. And I was able to show her the land that I fell in love with. Um, so after that, in August 2016, I drafted, and I got my head shaved. I gave my personal information to the army, and I received all the gear. And when I changed into my uniform for the first time, I said the Shehecheyanu prayer screaming. So everyone heard me and already thought I was crazy from the very get-go. And I loaded on a bus to Mikveh Alon, to the base. It's an education base in the north, and it's for various different purposes. But one of the bigger purposes for it is to acclimate new immigrants, whether they're from Spain, Turkey, England. There was a guy from India and Ethiopia, America, Argentina, wherever, to learn Hebrew and do like a very basic like crash course of like what the army is like and what Israeli society is like, so that you're not in total shock when you finally get into the unit that you're supposed to be in. So I made a lot of great friends there, and from that, I met my future roommate there, and a lot of there was a lot of great memories, and I learned a lot. But the real story begins after that. When we returned to the recruitment office, and my idea was to be a paratrooper, like Michael Levin was my hero. But they were opening a new unit for religious people. I thought that'd be perfect. It's a new unit. I could be like the inaugural class. Like, that'd be so cool to be able to say that. And so when I got there, the guy said, "All right, you're going to Golani." And I said, "Well, actually, no. There's a tryout in 2 weeks. Can I just like postpone that and like I'll just go to the tryouts, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll go to Golani?" He's like, "No. You don't understand. You either go to Golani or you go to jail. And I was distraught because like, oh my God, I had everything figured out. I wanted to do this so badly. I can't believe like what am I gonna do? So I was like, I need to think about this. I need to see I have to weigh my options. And a few friends of mine saw me outside of the office and like, what are you doing? What's going on? And I told them the story, and they're like, Matt, you're an idiot. We wanted to go to Golani and they put us in the artillery unit and the tank unit and like these units that they didn't want to go to. Like we all wanted to go to Golani. You have the opportunity, go, you idiot. Just go. And just for anyone who doesn't know what Golani is, it was the very first combat brigade in the army. And it's been nothing less than the prime infantry unit that's entered in every war and armed conflict at the front lines. So like they've been in every single war and they've done a lot of things. They conquered the Golan Heights. They conquered the Eilat. They took the Hermon. They led the charge in Lebanon in the first war all the way to Beirut, where they surrounded Beirut, and that's where Yasser Arafat actually surrendered because of that assault. They were even part of the Operation Thunderbolt with Sayeret Matkal, which is the operation where they saved the hostages in Entebbe. So it was very long, illustrious history, but also a lot of death because they've been everywhere and they've done everything. So it's actually the unit with the most deaths of any other unit. And so that was what I was getting into. So I had there's two aspects of training that I got introduced to, and were obstacles in their own right. So first, there was a cultural barrier that I wasn't aware was as intense as it was. Even though my best friend Jacob, who was from South Africa, and a few other guys from England, France, Ukraine, Russia, and Azerbaijan were with me in my company, the vast majority were Israelis that were my age or younger, coming from way different backgrounds. I'll give you a few examples. There's a guy who was an ex-ultra-Orthodox that was kicked out of his family's home for joining the army, and he was a pimp the year before he was before he joined the army. There was a guy who was he lived on a kibbutz his whole life. He never even heard who Abraham from the Bible was until he met me, and I had to explain to him like who he was and what he did and why he's important to Judaism. And there was a settler guy that his teacher was murdered 2 years before by a terrorist right up like very close to where they live. And there was like a Moroccan Israeli guy that like typical wannabe gangster, listened to a lot of Tupac, claiming that he came from the mean streets of Jerusalem, whatever that means. And so there were a lot of really strange characters that I wasn't necessarily prepared to encounter. And at first it was hard for me to fit in with everybody. But after everything that we went through, good times, bad times, we knew that like the adversity would only make us stronger physically and psychologically. And, that also strengthened our bonds with each other. And, to this day, I would take a bullet for every single one of them. And I know for a fact that every single one of them would do the same for me. So physically, of course, was even more challenging than that. So when they saw me, my commanders, they saw that I was very tall. I had muscular legs. And I was American, meaning that I was a big sucker. So they knew that they could give me all the heaviest stuff and I'll be more than enthusiastic to take it without knowing what that would mean. So during our long marches and during our drills, some of the things I had to carry were the Matador anti-armor rocket propelled grenade launcher, the MAG light machine gun, which is, I assure you, and my dad can assure you from the Argentinian army, it is not a light gun. A regular grenade launcher, and the emergency water bag, which carried 18 kilograms of water, and the giant scope of a stationary anti-tank missile which came in a giant bag that I could only describe as like a giant green refrigerator. So during training, we do these long marches called masaot, and they would escalate every few weeks. Like we would do one every few weeks, and they would escalate in length and in intensity. So the first one we did was only about 3 kilometers in the hills, right outside of the training base. And then our last one, which completed our training, was over 40 kilometers long, and we had to carry 40% of our body weight on our backs. And at that time, it was 80 pounds on my back. In one night also. It wasn't like spread out in a couple of days. One night I had to do all of that. So it was very difficult. And, everybody thought there's no way we're going to be able to do this. Like every time we hear like, what? You want us to do this? There's no way we can do that. And then we'd be surprised at the end that, wow, we actually did it. And so with a lot of physical strength and, mental determination, we got through it. So we need to be, it makes sense that it would be hard because Golani is presently supposed to be the unit that's supposed to be the head of the spear, as Israelis call it, in a war in the north, because we are under the northern division. So we had to be prepared for like a possible war with Hezbollah or with ISIS or whatever sort of threat would come from that. And like it's probably the most intense and dangerous terrain, that border, and also what's beyond the border of Israel in those mountains. So we needed to be strong. And we knew that if we are going to be prepared to do that, we have to be strong in everything. And thank God, on June 20th, 2017, I got my brown beret on my shoulder, and I was now an official Golani warrior. During my service, I was stationed on tours of duty on the border of Lebanon, the frontier of Gaza, which was also during that time 2 years ago. If anyone remembers, there was very crazy riots with thousands and thousands of people trying to infiltrate into Israel and cause terrorist attacks and what's it called, in the kibbutzim in that area. I was also in Hebron, which for anyone who doesn't know, that's in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank as some people call it. And also there was emergency situations where we were called in different other areas in Judea and Samaria. There were some times that we were called back to Gaza. Sometimes we were called to the Syrian border if there was like a very sensitive situation going on. And yeah, during my service, I was trained to be a machine gunner, a riot gear expert, a grenadier, and I kid you not, this is actually a thing, a door breaker. So using these skills, I would be given many different assignments with my teammates, including security work, escort missions, riot control, ambushes, patrols, arrests, weapon confiscations, and emergency response in both a military and medical capacity. Though I'm not at liberty to give details about everything I did and certain things, two very different things that I'm proud of from my service were, as I said before, my service during these riots. My unit was a very big part in preventing them from escalating and preventing a lot of infiltrations. Even the ones that actually got over the border, we were able to stop them. Thank God. And another thing was the way I ended my service, which was in Hebron. Like I said, I actually moved to Hebron, leading up to my tour of duty there, because I wanted to become a part of the community and understand what life for the Jews and the Arabs living there was like. And then even on the weekend, so with that, I became much more motivated to actually want to be there, while most people at the end of their service are more like, oh, ad matai, until when? Like they just want to go home. They want to go to Thailand on their post-army trip. But I was determined to finish my army service strong, and I do not regret for a second doing that. It made it so much more worth it. And during my and then also while I was there on Shabbatot, when my teammates would be would be home wherever they lived, I would volunteer to do missions on the weekends as well, like arrests and patrols and stuff like that with other teams in my unit. However, all that being said, the greatest thing that I got out of my time in the military was without a doubt a very special person. Her name is Eliana. She's actually in this group chat right now. And she's my wife. So leading up to meeting her, I had no experience with religious dating before or during my service, whether it be through a matchmaker or organically meeting a girl. In truth, I wasn't even Shomer Negia until a little bit before I met her, and even then, not so much. So while in Gaza, I had decided I was very bored other than like all the missions and everything. So I was like, oh, I remember in the Maimonides classes when we were learning about Shavuot, to talk about the whole idea that every Jewish soul was in Mount Sinai, was present at Mount Sinai during Matan Torah, that he used an example. There's a website that's called Saw You at Sinai. That's for Jewish dating. So I said, that's, you know what? I just remember that. Let me create a profile just for fun. Like, let's see what happens with it. Because, eventually I'll probably want to like date religiously anyway. So I'll just maybe get a date out of it, see what it's like, and I'll be prepared. I won't be like having to shoot from the hip when I do it later on. So I made the profile, and then I completely forgot about it for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, I opened my email for like the first time in a year, and I saw that I got a notification that I had a match, and it expired because I didn't respond to it for a week. I felt very bad, and I called the matchmaker, and I was like, listen, like I feel really bad that I didn't even give her a chance. Like, can you make the match again? I'll look at her profile really quick, and if I don't want to date her, like I'll just say no really quickly before she even sees it. And she was like, okay, you can do it. And I saw, and it was this beautiful religious girl from Passaic, New Jersey. She was living in Jerusalem. And I said, you know what? All right, I'll try it out. So I called her up, we scheduled a date, and leading up to it, I was super nervous because she was a religious girl, raised religiously in a religious family that's still religious, and I had zero experience with that. So I was very freaked out. So I tried to plan the perfect date. So we met on Yom HaZikaron, on Israeli Memorial Day, at the Mamilla Mall in Jerusalem. And in the old we would meet at the ice cream shop, and then we'd walk around in the old city because I lived there for about a year. And my mom told me that I should come in uniform. I was in my dress uniform anyways because I was at a ceremony. She was like, you have to go in uniform. She'll love it. And that was great advice from her. Thanks, Mom. And so from then on, we were dating, and it was fantastic. She was like my second half. We both saw very quickly that we were very into each other. But the only thing that was very difficult was the fact that I was in the army. So we didn't see each other a lot, maybe once every 2 weeks, even longer sometimes. And even when I was on base, I wouldn't be very attentive to my phone because I'd be very busy and I wouldn't receive calls and everything. So it was very tough, but we got through it. And in February, I finally got the courage to ask the question. And I could have been, typical guy that's, waiting to, go to a park somewhere, pop up the ring, have someone come out of the bushes with a camera, and be done with it. But that wasn't my style. I needed to do something that was unforgettable and something that was meaningful to me. So I had her come to base one day. She would come to visit me a lot when I was in Hebron, because I had like 8-hour guard shifts. So she would come to Hebron and she would sit with me during guard duties. And then sometimes she would come and we would have like trips or like activities after I got off base. So I told her to come one day. It was February 14th. Didn't mean for it to happen on Valentine's Day, just ended up that way. But she came, and when she got to the front of the base, she called me, and my captain and I were in full combat gear in the armored jeep, and we burst through the gate, and I opened the door and I was like, Eliana, you have to come in right now. There's a situation going on. Like, I swear, like when this is over, we'll go out, but like we have to deal with this right now. And she was like, oh, okay. And she came in and she was like, oh, this is so cool and whatever. And we drove all the way to the heart of Hebron, to a place called the Cave of the Patriarchs, which is the second holiest site in Judaism. And it's, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the place where Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, and Leah, the mamas and the papas of Judaism, are buried. And so I thought it would be very meaningful. And my friends from the army, my friends that lived in the Hebron and Kiryat Arba community, and Eliana's mother came, and she didn't tell Eliana. It was a total surprise to wait for us. And when we got there, there was a giant sign or balloons. Everyone was there. And that's where I popped the question. And thank God she said yes. And that video actually went viral. And I'll show that later after I finish this presentation. Yeah, there's a chance maybe you guys saw it before. My last story, though, before I finished the army, the month before, you're actually supposed to get off for something called a chafshash, which is basically an R&R period for soldiers so they can acclimate to like civilian society, get their affairs in order before actually cutting their ID card and officially becoming a civilian. And I took that opportunity to come to the States to go visit my family and friends, and that weren't able to come for my engagement, and also to go to APAC policy conference in Washington, D.C. with my dad. And while I was in D.C., I got a call from my lieutenant that he tells me, listen, I'm only telling you because you have the right to know, but you don't have to come. But there's a very good chance that something's going to happen in Gaza right now. And if you want to come and you want to help, this is the opportunity. You have to get here as soon as possible. And when that happened, I immediately thought of Michael Levin's story. I said, I have to rise to this occasion. And literally the next day, I flew back to Israel. I came back to Florida, said bye to my mom, got everything packed, and got to Israel as soon as possible. When I came, Eliana was there to surprise me, or not surprise me, to pick me up from the airport. We went on the train together to Jerusalem, and that's where we separated. Not sure if that was going to be the last time we saw each other or not. Very scary moment. And then I went down to Hebron, packed up my army gear, and went straight to the border of Gaza. And my friends were in shock when they saw me. They didn't think I would actually come. They said that if they were in the same situation as me, they wouldn't have. But I was like, there's no way I'm not. Because if anything happened to them, or anything happened in general in Israel, if an actual war broke out, there was no way that I was gonna miss it, and I would regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't rise to that occasion. And we were there for a week. We were doing drills, getting ready, drawing out plans, how we were going into Gaza, what we would do, and even staying on standby at a secret location, like next to one of the entrances to Gaza. And in the end, thank God, nothing ever came of it. And my friends to this day make fun of me like friends from the army, they're like, "Oh, you're such a sucker that you came. Like, we obviously knew nothing was gonna happen. Like, why did you even come?" And I was like, "Look," and I don't regret it. I'm very happy that I did it, because even though nothing came of it, like I proved to myself that I was ready to rise to the occasion and do what needed to be done. And a week later, thank God, I finished the army. I cut my card, and after my army service, my post-army trip it wasn't to Thailand, it wasn't to Colombia. I went back to Poland as a group leader for March of the Living to close the circle of this great journey. And a few months later, in November, I got married to my sweetheart Eliana, and I lived happily ever after. So that's about it. If anybody has any questions,
I will.
and then
I will start.
if anybody wants to see some pictures and videos, I'll have Maya put me as the host, and I can
Definitely, we definitely want to see pictures and video and questions. Just before you show let's put the pictures and video before the questions.
Okay.
Open up the questions. I just want to say, Matt, this was very inspirational. Thank you so much. I learned a lot about the process, and I didn't realize that you had this wild decision way before you even came to college. So, I see that that it wasn't just something that developed here. I can't take the full credit for that. I'll still take some credit, but I remember that when you told us about it, it was very difficult decision. We were really excited about you being the president, but again, this was good for you, and so we were excited, about this. So after all of this, I think I'm going to make you an offer to come to Tallahassee to do shlichut here. But it's funny you're saying about calling your parents and letting them know that you're not coming back. I was just this week with a person who told me that when he was young, he was sent to Israel, and his father was set for them to take away the passport so he can't come back, but he didn't give him the passport. And one day he called his father, said, "Come pick me up from JFK." So this is just the opposite, and it's inspirational. And as I said, it takes sometimes to do crazy things. I can understand how your mother was thinking, and it's natural for a Jewish mother to think that way and to worry, and for everybody to you being young and going on your own. It's definitely a very courageous, very crazy thing to do, but it's a very courageous thing to do, and you did it. And I know you yourself had some doubts. I wasn't sure, like it was, but you know it's the right thing to do. You felt the right thing to do. You did it. So we admire you for doing that. So Maya, did you? What was that?
I think she made me the host, so I can share the screen.
Okay.
All right, let me do this real quick. Never done this before.
She asked. Yeah.
Here we go. Wait. All right. Here we go. So here's the video. Okay. How does this? Can you guys see it?
Not yet.
Oh,
You don't see it.
it's still not on share screen?
No.
Okay. Oh, wait. Here we go. Sure.
Now you do.
Okay. There we go. So.
Mother and daughter.
Alla campana, Mara Matthew!
So that is that video. Here's some pictures of right, let's see. Here's some pictures of me from the actual March of the Living, from before everything started. That was me in Treblinka. They gave us notes from our parents to read while we were there, and that we had no idea about, and we were all supposed to go to different places and read them, and that was a very emotional part. I was reading a note from my father. Okay, this is on the train tracks of Birkenau. This was me meeting my my cousins in Ranana for the first time. This is in the Golan Heights with some of my friends. The Dead Sea. Okay, what's that? There's some stuff from college. It's when we were in APAC. The rabbi's right here. There I am. This is me and Benjamin at a FSU game. We're not in the right minds there. This is with the mayor of Tallahassee. I forgot what his name is.
Andrew Gillum.
Yeah. I was with at 770 in Crown Heights, Rabbi Lipsker from UCF and some of my friends from there. This is me tabling for Knowles for Israel. Another event for Knowles for Israel. Is that it? Oh no, they have more. This is at the Hanukkah candle lighting with the Chabad staff plus Jordan. This is with the governor of Florida for Hanukkah party. Micha and I in deep discussion. Another picture from APAC. It's President Thrasher from FSU. Wrapping tefillin at APAC. And then another picture at an event for Israel. Then Birthright and Yeshiva. Here's our group with Rabbi David Nisanoth. This is me with my friends from Yeshiva. As we called it, hitting the Mickey. We went to the mikveh every single day in Mea Shearim. Shai Fleischer, he's a great advocate for Israel, personal, I don't know what to call him, an advisor of mine. He helped me all along the way. This is at his house on the Mount of Olives with a beautiful view of the Temple Mount in the back. This is where I proposed years later, but this is my first time ever in Hebron. This was in Tekoa on a field trip with the yeshiva. This is at a Fabrengen. And this is from Birthright. And here's the actual interesting pictures. Here's the army. This was the first time I left home in uniform. My friends from the Hebrew course.
Well, what was home for you then? Where did you stay?
I lived in Ramat Gan in the beginning of my army service, but then I moved to the old city in Jerusalem, and then I moved to what's it called? I moved to Gush Etzion, it's in the Judean Samaria in the West Bank, to a town called Elazar, and then I lived in Hebron.
Now you were like the only religious soldiers there in your unit?
No. he was religious. There's quite a few religious guys. So this is from that. This is from my swearing in ceremony for Golani. There's a picture with my dad when he came to visit me on vacation. I don't know why it's so small. Whatever. This is when my mom came to visit me for the first time since I joined the army. Very emotional moment. She jumped out of the car of the tour guide and like attacked me in the middle of the street of Tel Aviv. Very emotional moment. This is me on a trip. Don't look very happy there. This is me before war week. I was definitely not very happy there. This was my commander and some of my friends. There's that big fridge I was talking about. This is me in the middle of an exercise. This is with a friend of mine, Iran, and a Bedouin soldier that we were in an exercise pretending to be Gazans at a riot in Gaza. So we went crazy there. This is when this is a story I didn't tell. This is when I accidentally made Aliyah. So I came to there's an event for lone soldiers to get their affairs done basically in one day. Like all the different offices of the army, of the government come together and they like give this big opportunity. And that day I was deciding whether I wanted to actually make Aliyah that day or if I wanted to wait until after I finished the army. And I had already had everything done previously, but there were some certain documents I needed to give. So I was like, I have these documents. Can I just give it to you guys? And then let's like save it on file for me. And they said, yeah, sure. Just like bring these like passport pictures to this lady and you can and you'll be all set. So I gave it to her and she was like, all right, just wait a second. And she was typing on her computer for about 5 minutes. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, wait, hold on. I'll be done. And when then she gives me a stamp on my passport, American passport, that says Teudat Ole, which is immigrant certification. And I look at that, confused. And all of a sudden, the I forget what his name, what the rabbi who's in charge of Nefesh B'Nefesh comes from behind me and says, congratulations, you were the first immigrant of Israel from the North American region of 2018. And that's how I became an immigrant. Okay. This is me with my dad's best friend's grandkids that live in Jerusalem. They're also Chabadnikim. This is me doing a security job in close to the border of Gaza for a Hanukkah event. Me with all my bullets. My best friend Jacob, he's from South Africa. Me during one of those famous Masaot, but this was already when I was in the unit. This is me with Mari Stoudemire. He just finished his conversion to Judaism, actually, and he was an NBA basketball player for Miami Heat and some other teams, and now I think he owns Hapoel Yerushalayim, or one of the big teams in Israel. I just randomly encountered him with my brother-in-law and his brother. Me in the Golan Heights. Me in Hebron. Is that scary picture from the advertisement? My friend Barry. In Hebron, there's a program for guys that are seeking a rabbinical ordination. It's called Ratz Chabad. And while they're learning to become rabbis, they do chesed. They do like kind acts for soldiers. Like they help sit with them and their guard duties, bring them snacks and food. So it's a good friend. This is my last picture I ever took in uniform during that period of uncertainty that I talked about that I came back from the States for. And the proposal. I was on a trip with Eliana. This is me at a bus stop in Hebron where I was guarding. This is with the Chabad guys again. Another one. And this is when I finally cut my ID card and the army was over for me. And and then this is me in Birkenau, 5 years after my first time on March of Living, in uniform. That was my full circle moment. And then here's a full picture with the most of my friends from my team. That's about it.
Shkoyach, inspiring. Okay, Chaz and David, I know you were going to add some questions to your son, so go ahead.
Well, first of all, I would say thank you to you because you were the first flame in Matthew's heart to become what he is now. Second, I would like to say thank you to many people that came today to this meeting. First, my aunt Dorita, that is here, is related to Matthew's mother's family. Here, Cynthia is my oldest daughter. Diana had to go to work, was before here. And was David Ginsberg also here. So thank you all for being part of this special moment for Matthew. What I can say about Matthew, with the beautiful smile and sweetness, he's one of the toughest guys that I ever met in my life. He's a person with determination. Matthew, first of all, he didn't speak until he was 4. And you can see now that he can speak. And after he started to talk, he never stopped. And the same thing when he decided when to study, when to cut the school, when to go to Israel, how to be in Israel, and the story that he made about when he decided to stay was that end of March, supposed to finish the 30th of March, supposed to finish something that he was studying, and his ticket back was for the 28th. And I said, don't worry, put the money in my card, I will pay the difference. He said, Dad, you don't understand. And I said, I understand better than you can imagine. You are not coming back. And this is the story that Matthew was telling before. So thank you, Matthew, for being who you are. I'm sorry that the distance and this stupid pandemic doesn't allow us to be together. But I think that you are smart enough to understand that it's not the end of the world. And maybe in a few months or in a year, we'll get together. I love you, and I am proud of you, and about you, and also proud of your beautiful wife that is studying together with you in the same university, and the world is, the top of the world will be yours whenever you decide. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Bezrat Hashem, much sooner, because tomorrow night is Tisha B'Av, it's the 9th of Av.
Yeah.
This morning, the distraction at the Beis Hamikdash, stories like this help build the Beis Hamikdash, help bring light and make the world into a better place. And Bezrat Hashem, hopefully, we'll meet with Mashiach much sooner, and we won't have to wait for, to
I will not be surprised that Matthew will put the first stone to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash.
Amen, amen. Every mitzvah we do is another stone, and Matthew had been done a lot of mitzvahs, so he already built a lot of stones in the spiritual base of mikvah.
Yes,
So
yes.
definitely it'll be the physical one as well.
Oh,
And
Sarah Leah, thank you for being here also.
anyone else has a question? I think Maya asked a
Dora,
question.
Dorita.
Maya's asked a question. How was your last single Pesach on the chat here?
My last single Pesach.
Mm-hmm.
What was it for Pesach? I was with Eliana. It was great. I was with her grandparents. It was a good time.
Good. Okay. Anyone else has any questions?
Anybody got questions?
Sarah Leah, maybe? Unmute and talk.
No, it's late in Israel, so.
Now you can talk.
Thanks for the shout out, David.
I had a great time in your home.
You related
We
to,
enjoyed having you. We're waiting for you to come back.
Okay, save some soup for me.
I'm Matthew's aunt.
Are you related to Cheskel Dershowitz? Is Dershowitz in I think in New Jersey that
Yeah.
used to come visit here. Tallahassee. He would come visit Tallahassee a lot. You know.
What's his first name?
He lost his wife.
No. What's his first name?
I think it's Cheskel. He lost his wife.
I have to ask my husband. I'm not sure.
He got remarried. Cheskel Dershowitz.
Matt, it was very interesting. A lot of the stories I knew, but many of them I didn't. I just knew the basic outline. So as soon as Eliana sent us the link, we all the kids are all around joining in to listen to all your details. And it's fascinating to see how it went from point to point to point and followed for a full circle, as you said, and to create and mold the person you are today. So it's quite fascinating, even as we know you for as few years that we know you, to see it in the broader scope, in the bigger picture. It was quite impressive. You did a great presentation.
It's all recorded and it's going to be available online on the Chabad FSU Facebook page.
Dorita, unmute yourself and say something to Matthew.
Dad, don't pressure people.
That's it.
No. I can say it in my English Spanish. Really, I am so glad to see you, Matthew. I see your face and you are family. Really, I look at your eyes, I look at your smile, and can see every one of my grandchildren. So I am so happy to see you. So emotional moment. You people, you are in my heart forever. And I appreciate all what you have done. It was amazing what you have accomplished in your life, the man that you have become, the nice guy that you look. Really, you are very handsome. Really, you are part of our family. And I love you all, and really, you and your wife, I would like to have some contact with you and with your family, but really, I'll go sometime to Israel after this pandemic is go away. If it will leave us time to go and visit, I would like very much to see you, to hug you, and tell you how nice is watching you.
Sure.
Your stories, everything you have shared is emotional, really very emotional. Really, I felt it in my heart, and my tears are coming out, so that's all.
Matthew, I love you and I'm proud of you.
Very proud.
Okay. So Matt,
You're a legend, Matt. You're a legend.
Is that Mo?
I'm just saying you're a legend. Just wanted to say that.
You're the man.
And Mr. Feuer, Rabbi Dr. Cantor, I have one request from you.
okay.
Unfortunately, we weren't able to be by the wedding. But the way that the Olam talks about you and your chazanas, can you do a piece for us now? A quick little piece?
It's not a moment, but listen, something that is very important probably for the rabbi is what that Judaism is standing in three pillars. על שלושה דברים העולם עומד, על התורה ועל עבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. So let's do that. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. That's it. Are you happy
Beautiful.
now?
I'm very happy. Thank you. Beautiful. Matt, I feel bad. I didn't mean to take away from your spotlight, but I needed to jump on the moment. You talk about
course.
taking, jumping on the moment.
I feel that. I understand.
Listen, Matt, let me know when you write a book. Amazing.
All right.
Very inspiring. Very inspiring.
Can I just say something?
Okay.
Oh, laser.
I just joined right now. I missed the whole speech. I just got reminded. I just opened Instagram and saw it on Matthew's Instagram. I can't believe I missed it. But I did get to know Matthew very well, thank God, in Hebron, when he served his 4 months in Hebron, the last 4 months of the Army service. I know he mentioned the Rutz Chabad before, so I was in the Rutz Chabad for 2 years, just finished over there. And I just want to say that I got to know Matthew personally. And over my 2 years in Hebron, I met thousands of soldiers. And Matthew is one of, if not the most given over soldiers that I saw when it came to guard duty. You know, people get tired and you can't blame them. Matthew was always there. He took every single second seriously because he really knew what we were there for and why he was there and why he did what he did. So I just wanted to say that. We love you, Matthew.
You're the man. All right. I'm actually at a friend's house because my Wi-Fi at home is not so great, and it's almost 1 a.m. so I feel a little bad. So I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go soon.
Before
I will.
you go, your wife
Probably my wife is waiting for me at home too.
Something about your wife, Matthew. I'll just say, and
I'm waiting for my husband to come home.
okay. The one thing that Matt, that you said in your story, which resonated with me, and I remember when Eliana was first telling us about you. So I'm Eliana's mom for folks on the line here. Eliana did the same thing to me when she went to Israel after high school. I knew she wasn't going to come back. So when she said, you know, I'm really thinking of making Aliyah, I'm like, yeah, I know. I knew that was going to happen. So, you know, you guys were definitely destined to be together, and it's great to have you a part of our family. And thank you for sharing your story. It's not so easy to do in such a public way, and to make yourself so vulnerable and put yourself out there. But I'm sure by doing so, you'll inspire many people. But that takes a lot of courage to do that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Matt, for doing it so late at night, to stay up to a late night and doing it to inspire all of us.
Okay, I think that is time to go, no?
Yeah, and it's all available on the entire recording is available on Facebook, on the Chabad FSU page. Matt, you can share it with everyone. All recording is there. Thank you, Maya, for recording. And it's going to be on the video on the Facebook and on the Chabad YouTube thing. Maya, send me the link and I'll forward it to Matt. You can forward it to everyone. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
One more mitzvah.
Erev Tov, everybody. Love you, Matthew.